What's going on, family? Today is Focus Friday, and it's all about realigning with your purpose. Today's topic is all about freedom. And I will say freedom is integral in everybody's life. You want freedom in some capacity, some shape, some form. Otherwise, you'd be living a perfect life. Most people are not living a perfect life, so let's talk about it today. We're going to the board. And before we go there are two sides of the coin about freedom. Some people think freedom is one way. In reality, it's a completely different other. And the reason that this is so important is because most people think they know what freedom is. The question I would ask them is, why don't you have it? Why don't you have it if you already know what it is? So let's talk about it. Freedom. This is typically what most people think. Freedom is a destination, and they think of it in these terms. When it's this win idea, right? And when you think about freedom in terms of a win or a destination, you are always chasing the carrot dangling in front of you, moving, and eventually you'll kind of get in an autopilot doing that, thinking that over the hill, over the rainbow, that's where salvation is, and it's not. This is what freedom is. Freedom is a state. A state is a way of being, or it's a set of processes that allow for a certain outcome. This is key, family, the state. This means that you have to sustain. You have to sustain this state of freedom, right? It's not a destination. You don't get there and then, aha, it's there, it's yours forever. No, freedom is a state. It's a way of being. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of acting. It's a way of operating. And this is key. This is why most people don't have freedom, because they keep doing this win thing, and freedom is available now. You just have to become free by your thinking and your processes and your modes of doing things. And we're going to break that down, right? So we have open, right? So most people think freedom is like this open field, right? And you can do what you want, when you want, how you want, or whatever the case may be. And while, yes, those are options, true freedom is not very open, right? True freedom is actually quite compact. So like this open idea is whatever. Kind of like a spur of the moment. And I'll say this, being open is a component of freedom. It is not freedom. Being open is a component. It is not the actual thing. See, freedom is actually a vehicle, right? And your vehicle is really your disciplines. What do I mean by this? Your freedom is a vehicle in terms of disciplines, because these are things that you do. It's how you move. All right, so we can think of discipline as how you move. You have particular modes of how you move. You have a particular way that you move, and if you don't understand this and understand it and accept it, you'll be doing whatever in the spur of the moment, and you'll realize that, and we'll talk about it a little later, but you're being persuaded and influenced, and you think that you are living in a state of freedom when in reality you're in a state of captivity on a very high level, and you are just entertained. So the next thing is freedom. Freedom thinks like everything is public, right? Like you're just out and about. This is not true. You don't want to be very public when you're free. Why? Because when you're public, and this is what I was talking about, you are susceptible to influence. And when I say public, I mean more like being publicly available, or always out and about, or showing everything. Public and open kind of go hand in hand, but you don't want to be very public. You know, you want to be in the public, but you don't want to be of the public. What you really want to do is be private, right? So you have private matters. You have your own stuff. And typically when I think of private and public, I like to think of everything in terms of a vehicle, right? When you're in public on a public vehicle of freedom, what you're doing is you get on a bus. And when you're on a bus, you don't get to choose when you get there at all. You don't ever get to choose when you get there, and sometimes you don't even get to choose it there, because if the bus breaks down, you're SOL and you gotta wait for another bus. So you're basically giving your ability to move to something else. When you're private, it's like having your own car, right? You get to choose when, how, and where you're gonna go, right? So it's when, how, and where you're going to go, right? And that goes back down to these disciplines. It's how you move. The next thing is manual versus automatic. You get to a point when you're free, when you're in automatic, but it takes manual inputs. Most people are automatically conditioned and programmed to just do, think, and act as you're told. And when you're an adult, you say, nobody tells me what to do. You don't notice that they tell you what to do, right? This is the marketing, social pressure, other things, right? This is, you don't want to live life in automatic. You actually want to live very, 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 very intentionally. You want to be aware at all times, and you don't want to fall victim to slipping into this automatic movement, right? Especially if you've never gone to the manual mode, right? Manual is all about consciously reprogramming, and being aware. That means you're choosing what goes in your mind, what goes in your mouth, what goes in your ears, what you see, where you go, how you feel, how you act. You don't want to be running on automatic, because this is more like what they'll say, you know, this is flesh, right? Or urges. When you are in manual mode, you are choosing. You embody creator. You're creating, right? And the last two things is master and slave, right? Slave, man, you don't want to be slave to the urges or your flesh. Most people think that they're free because they do what they want, not realizing that they really don't want to do them. They just have urges, right? So we'll have the New Year's resolution, right? New Year's resolution is a key time where people really show how much of a slave they are to their urges and their flesh. And I know this might be a very charged statement saying you're a slave, but it is what it is. You are a slave if you don't consciously choose what you do and do not do. New Year's resolution. I want to lose weight. I'm going to make a change. 2 months in, you stop. You fold. Why? Because it's hard, right? It's not because it's hard. It's because you're just a slave to your urges. You decide not to do the things that you know you're supposed to be doing. There's no slug. It's a hard thing to overcome because your unconscious mind has been trained to act and behave a certain way. And until you go through this process of being manual, you won't become the master. The master chooses what they're going to do and what everybody else is going to do. Freedom is actually responsibility. It's a lot of responsibility. In becoming the master, you get to choose what you're going to do, but that entails responsibility. And the last thing we're just going to wrap it up with is framework and philosophy. You need to develop a framework and a philosophy for your life if you truly want to be free. If you truly want to be free, you have to have a framework that you abide by, a philosophy that you abide by. This is something that you make. You get to make this part. You make it. And to end this with one very simple thing, you'll know you have a framework and a philosophy once you get comfortable with this. Sacrifice. Get comfortable sacrificing. That's true freedom. You sacrifice. You give up the old to receive the new, and that means you get to choose where and how you want to progress and how you want to move. Freedom is not a stagnation. See, the way when you're in freedom, you're in a state. A state is a way of being. A being is never still, right? Law of vibration. Everything is in motion. Freedom is actually continued progression. It is continued progression. And in order to continue to progress, you have to sacrifice what is no longer serving you. Right? So that was really it on Focus Friday. I want you to realign with yourself. I really want you to take an internal judgment of how free you believe you are and where you can improve upon. This is Brother 𝐁𝐫𝐨𝐭𝐡𝐞𝐫. If you are somebody who wants assistance on getting more clear on their goals, you want to get more alignment, you really want to kind of broaden your wings and just fly, I encourage you to visit my site, jordanmaddoxenterprises.club, and let's talk about it. There's a link there. We have a book club. We have the burnout doctor. We have the creative counselor. We have an alignment coach. You let me know which one sounds best for you. Go ahead and click the button, and let's start learning and let's start growing. Peace, family.